Welcome to the Legend Section. We have the beginning of every one of these hatecasts. My wife is over here laughing at me. And in this episode, we are going over the big four. Today I'm joined by Jamie Lewis. We go over squat, bench, deadlift, and overhead press. How to get past sticking points, what our favorite variations are, and much, much more. He says, and I quote, it's one of the best episodes we've ever recorded together. So, really cool episode. I'm glad that I could bring it in to you for this holiday season. That sounded weird. I'm just going to keep rolling. It's totally fine. Anyways, if you're using this episode to avoid your family at Christmas or at any holiday that you celebrate, I know people are going to get triggered. It's fine. Christmas, it's just a word. If you're using this, we appreciate you, and make sure to subscribe and hit that bell button so that you're notified whenever a new episode goes live. With that being said, I'm chewing on it. Merry Christmas! So to celebrate Christmas, we are doing a BOGO on our fat burners, Predator, and our pre-workouts. I believe that's correct. Let me check because no, it's Fearox. I'm very professional. And on top of that, we have a 25% off code. So you can go over to www.chaosandpain.com and you can go ahead and get yourself some fat burners, pre-workout, or Predator, all of which will help you fight that weight gain from the holiday season. If you're anything like me, human garbage disposal right here. Without further ado, guys, enjoy the episode. Welcome to the latest hatecast. This is your host, Bryce Allen, and I am joined by Jamie Lewis. So,
Yo.
First and foremost, I'd like to inform everybody that Jamie is moving all of his content from chaosandpain.blogspot over to a new blog. So if you're interested in that, I will have the new blog linked below. Is it currently up and running, or is it something you're working on?
It is currently up and running. I'm still tinkering with it, so I haven't redirected the blog yet. But it is currently up. So if people want to see what the current iteration is, it's up at plagueofstrength.com.
Yeah, and we'll have that in the description for ease of access. I might even link it over the video just because reasons. So this episode is
officially set to go live on the 1st, but it looks like for once in my life I'm actually ahead of schedule. So it might be my Christmas present to the world.
Oh shit! Okay,
yeah.
Well, that is a big announcement.
Yeah,
all
it's
right.
I think literally for the first time in my life I'm ahead of schedule.
I mean, Merry Christmas.
Yep.
I mean, this will be airing this weekend, so this is everybody's Christmas present. I hope you enjoy the episode because it has been requested over and over again. I know it annoys.
Well,
yes, we are well prepared. I know it annoys you talking about the big three, so we decided to add an extra one in there to kind of settle your inner demons. Because I know you've been waging this war on powerlifting, as with everybody in the fitness community. So we're going to kind of...
Is that a thing now? People are waging a war on powerlifting?
You know, it is. It is. I think that's because the ridiculousness of the big three being pushed to the almost insane limits that it's gone to in things like ply, multiply, stuff like that, coupled with people having a little bit of a disagreement with how judges run the thing. You know, I mean, it's a very, 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 very difficultly high barrier of entry to get into powerlifting right now. And on top of that, either
are you talking about, because usually that refers to cost. Are you talking about the cost, or are you talking about...
Talking about the numbers you have to hit to do anything. You know, people are stronger now than they ever have been. It's crazy.
I will say that the elite are stronger than they ever have been, but I actually ran the numbers a couple of years ago, and it seems like it's actually worse now. That the elite, we'll call it the elite 5%, are so far ahead of the rest of the pack, and the rest of the pack is so far below the average lifter in the late 70s that there really is no barrier to entry, because just about everybody in powerlifting fucking blows. It's just the guys who are at the top of the pack are way out ahead of everybody else.
Right. Well, I was referring to more of numbers that makes people happy, because everybody thinks that you have to hit the elite numbers right off the bat.
Well, I mean, I did, but
hey, smart ass.
But the thing is that the number were 345 in the deadlift, or 345 in the big lifts. So it was a 300 bench, a 400 squat, and a 500 deadlift. Those were big numbers.
Right.
And those haven't, well, I would say those haven't changed, but I think the standard has actually gotten lower. I think that people get very excited about a 225 bench when, I mean, you get like in jail, you get a guy who's been in jail for 3 months. If he can't bench 225, he's not in the rotation.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of brings us into our let's just jump right into it. So first and foremost, I'd like to discuss, so we have squat, bench, deadlift, and we've actually added overhead press, because overhead press is something that I think everybody can see some benefits from, lifting something over your head. I mean, for fuck's sake, most of the injuries later in life that you occur, right, somewhat in the older public seems to be like rotator cuff issues, shoulder issues, trap issues, stuff like that, right? And they all occur over doing something stupid, something little, like holding a drill above your head, screwing in something when you're older, and then you hear this click, because you literally have no strength in your shoulders. So I think it's something everybody should be shooting to be able to lift something overhead. Be strong lifting something overhead, as well as it just looks cool as shit. It's a good feat of strength, Well, and they don't have them anymore, but MHP actually used to host meets, the supplement company, MHP, used to host meets that the strict overhead press was actually one of the lifts. And CrossFit's doing it now, too, so...
Yeah, the big three in CrossFit are the strict overhead press, the squat, and the deadlift. And the numbers last summer were impressive, because, and you'll get the fucking people who are going to jump up in the comments going, no, they're not that impressive, they weigh 200 pounds and they only pulled 600. Well, all 9 of the attempts that they got had to be done in 11 minutes.
Yeah. Not only that, but I also find that the people that make those comments about strong as fuck people usually are the people that weigh over 250 and can't pull 6.
Well, in my experience, they generally weigh around 150 and they don't lift at all.
That makes sense. Yeah, most have read it. But let's
4chan. Let us not forget 4chan and all 4chan. Of my fans on 4chan.
Hell yeah. By the way, if you're listening, fans on 4chan, we appreciate you, and we're also going to be doing a follow-up episode on incels and no-fat, because apparently that has been one of our most searched things. No-fat podcast has been one of our organic things that people found our podcast with. So our first episode of the podcast is doing really well. I'm really proud of it. So anyway, but let's get back on topic. So let's jump into it. Squat. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to say this. I meant to say let's unpack this, because I know you're a fan of that phrase. Oh my God,
here we go. Let's tease this out, shall we?
So squat.
Am I the only one who's pissed off by that? Every time I hear some broad say that, I want to fucking grab her by her feet and start smacking her face on the floor like she's a wet towel.
So you're wanting to pack this. So
yeah.
Squat. Let's go over some things real quick. So, what's your favorite variation of the squat?
Front squat. Well, actually, the partial front squat. I like the half front squat off the pins, because you can move a shitload of weight. It still engages all the muscle groups that you're getting out of a full front squat, and the the amount of stress that it puts on your body is way more impressive and more intense than a full front squat.
Yeah. I mean, I have to agree with you there. I also think that I would also like to bring up the fact that we're going to be discussing variations in a lot of these, because if one of your variation numbers increases, usually your traditional back squat, your traditional conventional deadlift, your traditional flat barbell bench press will all increase along with the variation numbers, and it's working the same muscle groups. You know, there's no magic bullet when it comes to that. But anyway, my favorite variation of the squat has to be, right now, I seem to be falling in love with box squats again. So
really,
yeah, just I can lift a shit ton of weight on box squats, and it's explosive and badass. I love it. So
I just feel like it's a great way to compress your spine.
Well, I'm 6'5". I could do with a little bit of spinal compression. So
that's true. I need every inch I got.
Yeah, but so how would we go about increasing those numbers other than just adding weight to the bar? Like what techniques would we use in order to increase those?
I will say that the number one, in terms of form, because everybody's a huge on form, I would say the number one thing that is hurting people is not so much form related as it is foot placement. I see a lot of people who come to me asking for help, and I ask for videos in a very odd way. I always need to see their feet, because their feet are usually the fuck up. They'll point their toes in bizarre directions. So like one foot will be pointed straight ahead, the other one will be at 90 degrees. Or, and that's an extreme example, but what it does is it shifts their weight to one foot or another when they're squatting to the bottom. So you'll watch their ass will kick to one side or the other. And just by fixing that, I find that a lot of people will have their squats jump up. But aside from that, the 2 points that I find people have weaknesses where they really need to improve those weaknesses in order to increase their squat are in hamstring strength and in ab strength. Right. So what I recommend is that, one, people ditch their belts. I only wear a belt in competition, and that is just as like a fail-safe in case like I pull an ab or something like that. The first time I squatted 615 in competition, I did it with no belt on. I had no sleeves, no belt. I was just wearing wrist wraps because my wrists hurt. I mean, you really don't need a belt if you have a strong midsection, and a strong midsection is what's going to give you a big squat. If you have a weak midsection, your squat's going to fucking blow because you can't hold your body up. So, and the same goes for hamstrings. People really neglect the shit out of their hamstrings, and now I know that it's in vogue to eschew machines. Hamstring curls are your fucking friend, and you honestly can't do too many of them. So I'm not real big into stiff-legged deadlifts. I don't find that they help, and 2, they don't isolate the hamstring, so a lot of people are using their lower back or some other shit to pull the weight. Yeah, if you want to do stiff-legged deadlifts, fine, but make sure you're doing hamstring curls on top of them. I personally love standing hamstring curls, but not a lot of gyms have them anymore, so really any way you can get them in.
Yeah. I will say that I found another issue to be somewhat alarming when it comes to people, and it has to do with a gradual shift, right? So just like you were saying with the feet placement, sometimes you will notice that someone, starts to squat. They're just starting out in their lifting career. Their knees point a certain direction, and eventually either it moves further and further in and you get this cave in, or it goes further and further out, and that goes with their foot. I mean, their foot kind of drifts outwards or drifts inwards, right? And you'll find that with a lot of people within the 3 to 5 year range, they'll start to notice a little hiccup, right? They'll start to notice something's off, or something's, they're not as strong, or their squats don't feel as good as they used to. And this is because that gradual shift. And that has to do with a lot of things. I mean, one of the common weaknesses you find is people completely neglect unilateral movements when it comes to your legs, right? They'll do it for your arms. Even people are starting to finally get on to the fact that, benching, like doing dumbbell pressing with one arm, right? Will make you stronger. Along with that, people neglect things like lunges all the time, right? And I hate the term functional strength, but if you don't want one side to compensate for the lack of strength in the other, you do need to train something like lunges. And if you can't do lunges like I can't, because I have coaxial pain from an injury that I suffered when I was younger, jumping into a pool, doing a cannonball, hitting my ass on the bottom, and then my tailbone decided to heal in the incorrect way because it's an asshole. I ended up having to do hip adductor and abductor work on the I consent, I don't consent.
You're the one guy on the abortion machine, huh?
I'm the one guy on the abortion machine, yeah.
Hey, so somebody's got to do it, I guess.
But that's only because I can't do something like lunges or split squats because I feel coaxial pain, right? If you can do those movements, I would highly suggest that if you're looking to increase the, I guess, overall feeling of your squat, that would be a good way. And sometimes you'll notice that your knees and your feet placement actually correct themselves once those muscle imbalances are taken care of. I do think that something that has happened within the most, more recently, right, is we've actually have kind of seen a little shift in people concentrating on their hamstrings a little bit more. I do agree with you on the stiff-legged deadlifts. I feel like that's more of a stretch and not a exercise, so to speak, to hit the hamstrings like you really do need to be hammering them. But at the same time, if that's your only hamstring work that you're getting in, at least you're getting in something, right? I would highly suggest, though, you pick up something like leg curls or even some of the more difficult ones like glute ham raises. I know that's difficult for a lot of people to do, but it really can be effective in increasing the strength of your glutes and your hamstrings. So I don't think, although I will be, this will be controversial, but I don't think glutes are the limiting factor for a lot of people. Which has kind of been a lot of...
No, I don't. And you know what I'll hold up as evidence of that is Brett Contreras only squats 425. Guy does nothing but train glutes all the time, thinks that he's some kind of guru at glutes.
Glute guy.
He weighs, 250 or something like that and squats 425? I think I squatted 425 when I weighed 130.
I don't keep up with Brett Contreras. That sounds about right, though. I will say that... there is this importance on glutes, and you see strong guys all the time go in there and do these ridiculous hip thrusts with barbells, right? And
that's the thing now. And then these broads got like these big rubber bands they stick around their legs, and they're waddling around the gym in them with their lips, their faces all filled with Juvederm, and then they got the fucking rubber bands around their legs, and then they're doing hip thrusts all day long. I have no idea what the fuck has gone wrong with lifting in the last couple of months, but it's everything slid sideways on us.
Yeah. And as for unilateral movements, what is your opinion on that when it comes to increasing your squat numbers? Do you think that helps at all?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, really, at the end of the day, I find that the squat comes down to managing your weak links and then managing fear. Because the walkout is terrifying, and basically just bending your knees with a lot of weight on your back is terrifying. So you have to be fearless, and you have to be strong. And that's really what it comes down to.
Something people don't realize too is I think that this concentration on form too has kind of created another problem too. People descend so fucking slowly now, and then they pop up with the same level of slowness. I don't know what the word for that is. It'll be fine. So I think that if you were to just pop down, load your hamstrings, and explode up like you're supposed to be squatting anyway, I think that a lot more people would be a lot stronger in the movement. Because if you really sit there and you concentrate on form the entire time you're doing the exercise, I mean, what are you doing, 10-minute sets? I mean...
Yeah. And also, what to your point just now, you're engaging something called the Golgi tendon reflex when you bounce out of the hole.
Yeah.
Which basically your muscles will stretch to a point where they can't stretch anymore, and then they'll snap back. Olympic weightlifters use it all the time. I mean, you see Olympic weightlifters crash into the hole like you've never seen. They just smash into it. And I think one of the reasons why why powerlifters avoid that is because certain federations, that have USA in the name or IPF in the name, they tend to bang people for that because they claim that they didn't hit depth. And it's just because they hit depth so fucking fast, nobody was paying attention because they're slow, weak, fat motherfuckers who want to give people red lights. So,
yeah, but they don't fuck with Ray Williams, though.
What's that?
They don't fuck with Ray Williams, though.
No, holy shit.
they give him all white lights.
Now. Like, he doesn't even walk anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a fucking frog. When he gets down in that hole, he just pops right back up with it like it's fucking nothing. But yeah, I don't know, man. I just think that it has to do with people. I think sometimes their weakness has to do with them concentrating on form way, 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 way too much and really making it into like watching paint dry their set. I think it's ridiculous.
I think, again, that just comes back to people don't enjoy lifting. There's a lot of people in the lifting world who don't actually enjoy it. So they're trying to do anything and everything other than lift. And that's all that is. And I mean, I'm just going to say it straight up. If you're listening to this and you are a form Nazi, quit lifting because you're going to suck at it. That's just what's happening. You're just going to fucking suck. You suck
Body
right now,
English.
You're going to suck tomorrow. You're going to suck next year.
Body English is kind of the name of the game too. Especially when it comes to sports like powerlifting, it doesn't matter. It used to not matter, I should say, because now it fucking matters. It's so fucking much that people are upset about it. But it used to not matter that all you did was you go down, you get it up, you get the weight up, right? You fucking lift that shit. And now it's almost ridiculous the amount of depth that they require you. I mean, they don't require you to hit full depth, but they want you to stop in this. Like, people train to actually hit the depth that is required by the federation that they're in, right? And they don't go any lower and they don't go any higher.
Exactly. And that's what it should be. This whole ass to grass thing that Ripito started is fucking nonsense. Nobody was ever doing that 20 years ago. You got in the general region of fucking parallel to the floor and you were happy. Like, that's all it took. Now people are bagging on you because you're not scraping your asshole on the floor. Fuck them.
Wouldn't it be cool if you could, though? Hey.
I mean, what, like the dog does? Just stick your feet up in the air and just start dragging your asshole across the floor?
Hey, dog squats. We can do it here.
You will never see a dog happier than doing that.
We'll call it here, man. Dog squats are going to come.
There we go. Dog squats.
It's going to be a thing. You have to have the weight on your back, and then you have to rub your asshole, walk a few steps forward, and rub your asshole on the ground. And then you get back up. And then you lick yourself.
Yep.
I don't know if that's... You know what? Fuck it. It's going to be an Instagram video here pretty soon. We'll see. So that kind of goes over what I was going to bring up, which was let's talk about the potential weaknesses or potential breakdowns that happen in the squat form. So you had mentioned that people going too low, right? You had mentioned people potentially we had mentioned people potentially concentrating too much on the form, but we didn't mention sometimes people squatting, doing these absolute ass-to-grass full squats every time they squat, right? Being afraid of variation in their routine. What are your opinions on that?
Honestly, if you like training a certain way, I don't see any reason to go against it. I mean, obviously, it worked for Paul Anderson. It worked for me. It's worked for a lot of people that do partials. If you don't like doing partials, I guess don't do them. I mean, there are very legitimate scientific reasons to do partials, but you're going to run into people that just fucking hate doing certain things. I mean, at this point, I don't do any of the big three at all. I literally hate every lift in the big three. All of them. I can't stand them. So I just don't ever do them. Like, if I never back squat again, I'll die a happy man. It's uncomfortable. It's awkward. It's not as impressive as my front squat. And, I mean, because I can back squat. On any given day, I can back squat 600. I can walk into the gym and back squat 600. But like, it's much more impressive to front squat 600 than it is to back squat it. And I was getting close to it before I got locked up. So look for that video coming reasonably soon.
I got a quick question for you while we're on squats, and we'll move on after this. But let's talk a little bit about both. Let's talk about both bar placements, because that seems to be a little bit of a fucking, I don't know, people overcomplicate that shit. Like, for me personally, low bar is a little bit more comfortable, right? High bar seems to be what all the Olympic weightlifters do, and what are your opinions on that? Like, what would you do?
I'm a low bar squatter, and I will tell you straight up that low bar squatting is what the Ollie guys say about low bar squatting is basically true. I mean, it's to a lesser extent, but it is essentially true. A low bar squat is pretty similar to a sumo deadlift. That when you figure it out, it's a fucking trick lift. There have been a couple, and it's only been a couple of times in my life that I have hit a fucking crazy groove on the back squat. One day I was just in the zone, I was locked in, and I doubled 675 with no belt on. And I mean, I honestly didn't even feel myself doing it. And apparently my depth was gorgeous. People were like having a fucking heart attack watching me do it. And I didn't even realize I had 675 on the bar. I just kept adding weight because I was like, oh, this feels good. It was seriously, it's just pushing your hips through. When you get the bar placement perfect, and when you get your foot placement perfect, when everything is perfect, it's just pushing your hips through. Exactly like with a sumo deadlift. You'll see those Russian guys pull sumo, and they'll pull a stupid amount of weights off the floor, like with apparently no effort. And I swear to God, I wasn't sore from that, nothing. And I've never been able to replicate it. I did 675 for a double once, and I did 685 or 690 once. And it was just like, oh, well, holy shit, I just did that. And I was never able to do it again. So, so I'll say low bar squats, if you just want to kind of gain the movement and you really want to spend time studying it, you will figure out what your sweet spot is, and you can move crazy weights. I would say the high bar squat is less technical and more strength, but I think that kind of discounts the amount of strength you have to have in order to do like push your hips through with those crazy weights. It's just that it's a different kind of strength, I guess. I wish I had a better way to articulate it, because I think at this point I kind of sound like I'm just trailing off and bloviating, but
no, I completely get what you mean. I mean, it's when it comes down to it, I mean, it's if you're doing it for powerlifting, of course you're going to go low bar squat, because is there anybody who competes right now that does high bar?
Yeah, there are. In fact, the USAPL guys are real big on high bar, and I wouldn't be surprised if they banned low bar squatting.
Well, I was going to say, aren't some of those the USPL? Aren't they a lot of those guys Olympic lifters too, like retired or switched from Olympic lifting?
I wouldn't be surprised at that either, because of the stringent drug testing and all that. I don't know that for a fact. I really don't follow the USAPL other than mocking them. But the two good ideas they think they have are the ideas to limit hand placement in the bench press, because the bench press has gotten preposterous. Like, you see these guys doing crazy amounts, or girls doing crazy amounts of weight, and it's because they've got such a high arch and such wide hand placement that their range of motion is like 2 inches. So
that actually leads us perfectly into talking about bench.
Well,
let's go ahead and go over that. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So what's the deal with that?
There was a guy at a Swedish kid that I just saw on the internet yesterday. He weighs 145, benched 5, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean his hands are damn near out by the collars, and he had an arch that like reduced his range of motion to like 2 inches. The Japanese females perfected that form, and now everybody's adopting it, and it just makes the lift pointless. Like they originally it was the pullover and press, so because they didn't have bench presses, so you did a pullover to your chest and then pressed it off the floor. And then it became this bizarre belly lift where they basically roll it over their face and then thrust their hips up in the air to ram the weight up. And so that stopped being a lift, and they moved on to the bench press. Well, now we got to have some kind of like rule about arching on the bench because it's just gotten stupid. So
yeah.
But I mean, I don't even know how you'd regulate that because, what are you're gonna have a range of motion limit?
Have you tried it? Just out of curiosity.
I am the least flexible person on the planet. I can barely arch to begin with. So, like, I mean, I think it looks kind of cool, especially when a chick does it. Like, their setup is crazy. Like, Sin, for instance, our graphic designer. Her setup for the bench is wild, and she's got a crazy arch. And it's cool to watch them set up. It's kind of ridiculous at the same time, but it's entertaining. There's a lot of theatrics involved, so it's pageantry.
Well, I mean, so that's just using their federation's rules to their advantage, and I mean, there's something to be said about that. I mean, what's your opinion, just real quickly, on like if there's a rule for your federation that you could, potentially like let's just say you could use like some unfair advantage that was in the rule books, and it was fine to use, and everybody started using that, so you're like, why not? So is that something that resonates with you? Would you use that rule to your advantage when you're competing?
I think it's entertaining when people do that. I think I would probably pride would get in the way of that. There was a guy, for instance, Stumpy Grimes, who was a World's Strongest Man competitor, and I think he was only like 5'3". I mean, he was short, but he was...
Now I get the name.
What's that?
Now I get the name, Stumpy Grimes.
Yeah, Stumpy Grimes. Little Welsh dude. He was like 5'3" and weighed like 285, covered in veins, shredded. And he trashed everybody at the Africa Stone, which was a stone that looked like Africa, which you had to carry. It was like 50 yards down and back. Well, this dude because he couldn't get his arms around the fucking stone because he's little like me. So he made a loop out of duct tape. Because there was no rule against it, grabbed the stone, literally sprinted the 100 yards with this thing and mangled everybody, and they immediately put a rule into place that you couldn't use that. But you got that, you got guys who before they invented actual knee wraps used to do an ace bandage on the bottom,
right? Yeah.
And then they would put a tennis ball behind their knee and do an ace bandage on top, shit like that. I mean, it's amusing that they would do that shit, but I personally, that's just not the way I roll. So, and it's not out of any gamesmanship or anything like that. I'm not walking around saying it has to be a level playing field and shit. I just don't want anybody to be able to say, oh, well, he did such and thus. It was just like, oh, well, he just mangled me and looked like he didn't even give a fuck about it while he did it. Like, I just want that sort of reaction as opposed to, oh, well, he did this, which I guess you get with gear, but they're going to accuse you of being on gear whether or not you are anyway, so who gives a shit?
Now, that tennis ball thing... my question is if that thing ruptures, your knee's gone, right?
Your knee was probably... I can't believe the stress that put... Like, I'm thinking about the loading in terms of physics, and all of the pressure was going to the back of your kneecap. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if people snapped their patella in half.
Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. That makes me cringe. Stuff like that. I mean... Even those old denim squat suits made me cringe too, because there's stories of guys passing out because they were so tight. So that just makes me fucking like. Could you imagine being at the bottom of the lift and then that fucking tennis ball just going, and then your knees just snap.
Or
Oh my
or being in
god.
one of those denim squat suits under 1,000 pounds, and the squat suit rips. You're just smashed to the ground under half a ton.
It would make for a good video though. Um,
You know what?
so
I hate watching those videos. Like, they make me physically ill to
they
watch
go
somebody.
so viral though. They go fucking viral. Just like that guy with the leg press, his knees bent backwards. You know that guy probably quit lifting after that. Like, what do you do after that?
I never
What?
saw
How
that
do
one.
you? Yeah, yeah. I'll send it to you. It went viral
No,
a
I'm good.
while
I've
back.
broken my knee before. I don't need to see anybody
No,
tearing their.
I'm gonna just show it to you. I'm gonna just sneak it in there. It's like, hey, Jamie, here's some porn. It's like, oh, okay. Click. You son of a bitch. Um,
I watched a video of a dude get cut in half by a train, and he had an erection the entire time.
sounds exciting.
Yeah,
God
I watched that
damn.
video the other day.
Why?
Why would he
Anyway,
have an erection? I couldn't. Maybe he had a sexual attraction to trains. I could not begin to guess.
speaking of sexual attraction to trains, what's your favorite bench variation?
Um, I switched to incline because again, like the front squat, I think it's much more impressive to bench 405 on the incline than to do it on the flat bench.
Absolutely.
And after I read that John Paul Sigmarsson quote that I had posted like 10 years ago, I was like, well, I better get good at the incline. So, and for anybody who doesn't know it, John Paul Sigmarsson.
And this is a quote, guys. Don't get fucking. Don't
Yeah.
get butt hurt. Don't.
Well,
you
you're
don't
gonna
need
get butt one way or the other.
Yeah, they're
But,
gonna need Vaseline to sit.
There was some kid who was lifting at Magnus Ver Magnusson's gym, which is where John Paul used to train. And one of the guys went up to the person who was relating this story and said, "Oh, you're doing incline." And the guy was like, "Yeah, well, I just did a PR." And he was like, "You know what John Paul used to say about people who used to call people who benched under 405 on the incline?" And the kid, and he hadn't done 405, and he goes, "What?" He goes, "Faggots." So,
And then he just walked away and dropped the mic.
yep.
I mean, so that reminds me of the story that I actually know somebody up at my actual gym that used to train with Bill Pearl, and he was talking about two individuals per side having to help him get up the 125 dumbbells in order to do fucking chest flies with 125. It's like, how, that's stupid crazy strong. Like, even
Well,
for
and those
back
guys
then.
they didn't do flies with bent arms either, because Marvin Eder used to do crazy ass heavy ones, and he would do them laying on the floor, but they would do straight arm fucking flies with weight like
Yeah.
that.
So I mean, there was a level of toughness back then, even that I think is missing today, even by the elite level guys. I don't know. Maybe that's just my opinion.
I trained crazy fucking hard. I don't think I could have hung it with Marvin Eder. Reading his stories about like how he would do weighted dips with 500 pounds for 2 hours at a time. I'm not built like that. I mean, I've done weighted dips with really heavy weight. I don't remember what the fuck the heaviest I ever went was, 6 plates maybe. But I didn't do it for 2 fucking hours. I did like 6 sets of 3 and called it a goddamn day.
Yeah. Do you think this is just a little aside before we get really into the bench here? Do you think that those guys? Because I know guys spin yarns about exactly how much time they were in the gym, how much they lifted, all that shit, right? Because that stuff's been around since fucking cavemen were lifting up rocks, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think there were a lot of yarns spun when it comes to the old school lifters and the way that they used to talk about exactly what all they were doing?
See, these stories generally don't come from the lifters themselves. They come from people who saw them do this shit.
So it's not just urban legend, yeah.
No, and they're usually corroborated by multiple sources. So I would say probably not. But I mean, I've had people call bullshit on my bodyweight workouts, which I don't find to be particularly interesting or difficult. And they're like, "There's no way you could do that." Like 300 pull-ups in under a half hour. I can't tell you how many times I've done that in the last 4 months. A lot. I did 1,000. I was doing 1,000 pull-ups in like an hour and a half, to the point where it wasn't even making me sore. It was just because I was watching TV and listening to fucking Spite, and I was bored.
Well, I mean, look at what happened when you broke the record at 181. You know,
Then everybody.
yeah, like it was a barrier to entry that they didn't even know was possible to fucking go past, and then you broke it, and they're like, oh, that's a thing. I guess this is just the way it is now. And
it was like the 4-minute mile. I swear to God.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, John Hack just broke it again. He hit 1929.
Jesus Christ.
And John Hack's a nice guy. The last time I competed with him and beat him, and that was 3 months after I tore my biceps, so I was not at my best. And he was a nice guy, but he doesn't even look like he lifts all that much. You know, I mean, he looks like a lifter, but he doesn't look like the guy who holds the fucking world record in powerlifting.
Looks can be deceiving, man.
They are, and John, if you're listening to this, I'm not trying to insult you. Like, you are just insanely strong, and I don't know. I would expect you to look way bigger.
Well, hey,
because
I mean,
tall too. I mean, like, I'm not even the shortest person in the class. The guy who broke my records, the guy who John broke the record of, is also from Philly. I've never met him, but his name's Malik. I don't know. Some unpronounceable word starts with an M. Maliek Durstein.
I'll link it in the description. Yeah.
He's apparently he's like damn near a midget, like this little black dude. And John is probably 5'10", I think.
Yeah. Well, it happens, man. Look at Ray Williams. He looks like he's had way too many donuts.
Holy shit! I think he looks like he just lives on donuts. Yeah. And speaking of like those epic gym catastrophes, you remember there was one of the first ones that went viral. It was out of Iron Sport, and it was this guy who used to post what he'd eat every day on Steve's website. He walked out like 700, and his leg just snapped in like 3 places.
Oh shit!
You ever see that one? I'm
never training legs again after this.
So he walked it out all shaky, and his femur just snapped. It sounded like a gun went off. And but it had to be because of his diet. He was eating like 20 hot dogs a day and Pizza Hut Meat Lovers pizza. Like, that's all he ate.
Don't crush my dreams, man. That's my dream diet.
Is it? I don't like hot dogs that much. I don't get it.
You know, I like hot dogs fine, but that has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about. So let's get back on topic. Boom! Masterful transition.
Bench press.
Bench press. So how would we go about increasing bench press? Where the breakdowns are when it comes to form, and then potential weaknesses contributing to the problem. What do you think there?
Arm strength is the primary issue with most people's bench, I think. Kaz said that the thing that determined whether or not he was going to move big weights on the bench was the hammer curl. If his hammer curl was up, his bench was up. If the hammer curl was down, his bench was down.
That's so odd. I actually experienced the same fucking thing.
Really?
That's weird, yeah. I started doing heavy dumbbell hammer curls again with like 60s and 65s. And I ended up increasing my bench by a fair amount. That's pretty cool. Huh.
Yeah. There you go. Validation for you.
Yeah, hey.
And then most other big benchers that I've studied, 500-plus pound benchers, 600-plus pound benchers, put it all in the triceps. Every last bit of their benching strength comes from their triceps. There is a school of thought that the skull crusher is the prime movement for that. A lot of golden age of bodybuilding and proto powerlifters did huge weights on skull crushers. And
now, what are we talking? Are we talking dumbbell skull crushers? Are we talking barbell? Because barbell skull crushers are oddly similar to French press. So.
Yeah, these guys were doing straight bar barbell skull crushers. Okay. Some of them did them on an incline out of the rack, so they would set the bar just above eye level and press off that. Other guys did it on a bench and actually did cheating skull crushers, bouncing the bar off the bench behind their head.
Right.
And then Ryan Selly, who runs Selly's gym in Pittsburgh, he was the 198 bench press world record holder for a long time, and he swears to me that the dumbbell skull crusher is the way to go. Laying on the floor You take the dumbbell down to just above and just behind your ear. Rest it on the floor and let all the slack go out of your triceps for 1 count, and then press it up as hard as you possibly can. And that is the thing that he said when it goes up, it's like when that movement goes up for him, his bench is up. When it's down, his bench sucks.
Right. And for those of you hearing this advice and going, oh my God, tricep tendonitis, just know that most tricep tendonitis when it comes to gen pop does not actually have to do with triceps at all. It has to do with using your forearm flexors as this cheating way to handle weight that you really can't handle. So your forearms will actually curl inwards on stuff like pull-ups, rows, even deadlift to some extent, to compensate for the weight that you really can't support on your own, and then you get this tricep tendonitis, or you get this tendonitis on the inside of your elbows. So don't blame the fucking tricep work, blame your shitty form. Or your shitty,
I have never heard that before in my life, so I learned something.
Yeah, you're when you do pull-ups, you know how some people will compensate if like you see this in beginners all the time, their wrist kind of curls in whenever they do stuff like curls, whenever they do stuff like pull-ups is a great example, so is lat pull-downs, or even on the top of a row, right? And it's to compensate that last little bit of the range of motion, they'll curl in, and that will cause extreme pain on the inside. Because if it's on the outside, it's something else. But if it's on the inside, you better watch what you're doing, because that's and you'll see that in people over 40 too. They'll complain about tricep tendonitis. It won't be on the outside of their elbow; it'll be on the inside. On the inside, it's almost always your forearm flexors that are overused, that seem to be having a issue with recovering from the weight that you're using. So, and I know a lot of people blame tricep tendonitis or tendonitis in general on tricep movements, when in actuality they're not doing enough fucking weight. I don't know, I get triggered on that. But yeah, I mean, so I have to agree with you. I mean, all the big guys, they also have big biceps too, and big forearms. That's something you didn't kind of mention. So, just like with Kaz doing hammer curls and that increasing his bench, I feel that most guys who are concentrating a lot on triceps usually already have big forearms and big biceps. So that's something you can also build up, just like you said, arms in general being your limiting factor. So I don't think front delts, like most people, think that if they get their delts bigger, it's going to increase their bench drastically. I think that a lot of people overtrain delts, and we've been over that on the podcast before.
At least overtraining front delts, yeah. It is a tiny, tiny, tiny muscle.
Yeah, and it gets plenty of work from stuff like overhead press and stuff like that. And
the bench press.
You don't need to do overhead press, bench press, front delt raises, and then do some fucking stupid ass variation. Like you do 16 sets for front delts. Oh my God, what are you doing? You're spinning
what's come back into vogue is that one where they do the front raise with like a 45-pound plate, and then they start turning it from side to side like they're steering a car. That's back in vogue.
Why?
I could not even begin to guess. It's one of those things that's just come back for no reason.
Something I actually appreciate is landmine presses. So, I mean, those get a pass from me. I've played around with them. They're okay. But I don't know about that. I don't know about fucking driving Miss Daisy. I don't know. That's fucking weird. Who came up with that?
I couldn't guess. It's been around forever.
We need to do a deep dive on stupid exercises. See where it first popped up.
Yeah,
because there's a fucking machine out there that has you like simulating riding a horse. That's good for your glutes. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'll check and see if I can find any info on it. I don't know that I can, but I'll check books and stuff. I recently, so I had written an article a while back about how the greatest champions of bodybuilding were uncrowned, as they weren't crowned as Mr. Olympia, and one of the guys that I profiled in there was this guy, Scott Wilson, who had the broadest muscular shoulders of any bodybuilder ever on record. And I could barely find anything on his training methods, especially not his shoulder workout. And I even had his son actually emailed me and was like, nobody has ever fucking talked about my dad like in the last 20 years. You're the shit. Thank you so much. And I was like, well, if you get a chance, talk to your dad and find out what he did so I can write it down. Well, he never actually got back to me, and I had bought a bunch of books over the summer that I didn't have a chance to get to looking through. Yeah. And then I was looking for something else, and I found all of his fucking workouts. In addition to a bunch of other shit about how his workouts changed over time and shit. So I went to message the kid and discovered when I was looking up the kid's name that his dad died in May. So I contacted him and I was like, hey, I'm gonna write a full-blown article about Scott Wilson, and if you have any cool anecdotes, could you hit me with them? And he was so excited. So that was something that was kind of the highlight of my week actually this week, and completely off topic, but I do have a bunch of old school bodybuilding books that I can look through and see if I can find the root of that exercise. That's where I was going.
Let's fucking do it.
Yeah.
But so potential breakdowns, where the breakdowns happen in technique when it comes to bench. Where would you say that you see the most problems in the bench press?
Incorrect bar path.
Okay, and by that, where does it go wrong? Like at what point?
They're taking the bar too high on their chest. Usually they're taking it to like mid-sternum, whereas they should be taking it to the nipple line. And you should be pressing straight up. A lot of people, because they're used to racking the weight, they press up and towards their face. And you lose power as the bar drifts over your face. So that, and everybody's guilty of doing it. So that's really something we all need to focus on, is pushing straight up, not up and back.
Now, I know that packing your elbows seems to be like the thing that people concentrate on. What are your opinions on elbow placement when it comes to benching?
That is a tough question to answer because there are a couple of records from the 80s that have yet to be broken that were set by guys who had flared elbows. The one in particular I'm thinking of, who I'm pretty sure still his record hasn't been broken, his name is Rick Weil. He was a 181-pounder. He benched with a completely flat back, his feet flat on the ground, and his elbows flared like you've never seen before in your entire life. And he benched a beautiful 2-second paused 561 at 181.
Wait, a 2-second pause at the bottom or top, or where are we talking?
At the bottom.
Jesus Christ. That's a lot of power to be delivered from a 181-pound man.
Yeah, especially, like, just the amount of control that you have to put that weight on your chest for 2 seconds, because, you know, he's got to keep his tension on his muscles. So, I mean, just it's incredible, the muscle control and everything else.
Something I've noticed in that's pretty interesting though. Did he have a really muscular chest? Or what was he, like one of those guys who's deceptively, you know, you wouldn't know that he'd bench that much?
No, he looked like a little bodybuilder. I mean, he was, you know, he had that kind of 80s, like, sort of puffy bodybuilder look.
Okay, now I understand, yeah. Okay. Well, that's still pretty cool, man. I'm always impressed by the guys who don't look like they can lift that much, and then all of a sudden they come out of the gate swinging. It's crazy, especially when you look at some of the...
do that, too. The benchers are always the ones, and you're like, where the fuck did that come from?
And it's always like these guys. You know, I mention this guy a lot. His name is I'm not sure he wants me to say his name, but I've said it already. But you know, Brian at my gym, he's 130 something, 132. I think he competes in the 132s. Right, short guy, but he is insanely strong. I'd love to get him on the podcast if he listens to this son of a bitch. But he is insanely strong. He is 132. I think he hit 315, right? Which his Wilks score, by the way, is almost one of the highest in the country, I think. But that's because it's squat and it's deadlift. But yeah, just those guys who are deceptive in the way that they look just blow me away every time. So it's I don't know. It's there's something impressive about a guy who, and this is kind of an aside, but guys who's not very muscular, or not very big at all, and then they come in and they just lift something that a man twice their size would have a trouble lifting. It's stupid. It's a feat of strength that you wouldn't expect from those people, and it blows me away every time.
Yeah, no, but, this guy had some big ass arms and big ass forearms. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I see a little bit of an issue in the way that people bench when it comes to keeping everything tight. It's either they lose tightness in one or a couple different portions of their body, like they don't plant their feet. They're not rooted. Or they don't, squeeze their shoulder blades together. They don't pack their shoulders. Or they tend to have this, how people, when they sit at their desks, they're hunched over, their shoulders are raised, and their delts are kind of towards the front, right? Now, you can have a flat back and everything, but at the end of the day, if you have that hunched over, kind of Schmiegel look, right? Like in our first episode of the podcast, I had, Gollum make an appearance. He has that hunched over look, right? You have that when you're flat down on the bench. You're not as strong as you could be. And posture seems to really affect someone's bench form.
I will agree with that, and also something that I see. My fiance actually has this problem, and she's putting up around 200 on the bench. She's a good bencher, and but when she's struggling, it's generally when she's having a shitty day and she's really pushing hard, she will, because you're supposed to keep your shoulders packed on the bench. Right. She will use her traps because she's got big traps, so she'll pull her shoulders out and use her traps to trap shrug the weight to the last inch or two up, and it kills her bench because she'll do that to push out the last couple reps on rep sets, because she's got this reverse pyramid she does. She'll go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right. And it's working fucking wonders for all of her big lifts. But if she starts unpacking her shoulders and using them to shrug the weight up at the end, it'll fuck up all the successive sets because she keeps using that form. And she does have shit posture because she broke her neck in pro wrestling and never really had it properly fixed.
Well, she gets a pass, though. You know what I'm saying? But these gym guys that are, 145, 150, right? They've never lifted in their life, and they just sit there and they fucking shrug everything forward. They're the ones I'm talking about needs to really concentrate on. And, some of this is beginner information, too. Like the whole packing everything down tight and making everything tight. But I still think that some people who are in the intermediate to advanced stage can kind of because skills in and of themselves when it comes to lifting or life skills or whatever is all about sometimes relearning. Some of the best people in the world are professors because they relearn things every day when it comes to top people in their field. And it's the same thing with lifting. Like if you're not training anybody and you want to be the best lifter ever, you've got to sometimes go back to the basics, and packing your shoulders, making everything tight is kind of one of those basic things that I think sometimes a lot of lifters actually need to go back to a lot, because it just, your body has weird reflexes when it wants to go one way. Fighting it from going that way, especially when you have some weight, you're pushing up some weight, is difficult. I think that everybody needs to concentrate on that a little bit more when it comes to trying to increase their numbers, making sure that they're tight where they need to be, because that is a common problem amongst all of these big four lifts. So,
one other thing that I know that people focus on a lot, big benchers, is lat strength, because the lats are what ostensibly, basically what you're supposed to be able to do is flex your lats to drive the bar off your chest initially. Right. That was one of Rick Wiles' big things, because your lats push into your triceps and then it pushes the bar off your chest, so it kind of gives you a little nudge out of the bottom. Right. So if you have weak lats, that's going to be a problem getting the bar off your chest. One other thing that I will say is that, again, it comes down to people focusing on the form because they think they can kind of trick their bodies into moving more weight than they could if they perfected their form, rather than just focusing on getting brutally strong. So you saw a lot of guys in the 70s and 80s who were focusing more on the behind-the-neck press, the seated behind-the-neck press, than they were on the bench, and they had huge benches and huge behind-the-neck presses.
Yeah.
So a lot of gyms aren't even set up to do a good bench press or behind-the-neck press anymore. Like I know the rack in my gym, which is, it's a Lifetime, so it's got fucking great equipment, but you can't do a fucking behind the neck press in the thing that's for seated pressing because the way they have the uprights set up, you can't get the bar behind your neck. So it's kind of fallen out of vogue, and a lot of the magazines were blasting it and shit. You're gonna fuck up your shoulders. People were fucking up their shoulders because they had shit shoulder flexibility, not because of the behind the neck press. So that's another movement I'd throw in there as, like, just focus on getting fucking strong, and you can figure out the form later.
That kind of brings us into, you're getting good at these transitions. You're bringing up things that kind of transition us into the next thing, and that's great because it takes a lot of pressure off this guy.
Hey,
so
that's what I'm all about. I don't want you to have to come up with segues. We can, if it comes down to it, we'll just do like you did in the early podcast and just use the Daniel Tosh style of no segues. Just jump right in the next joke.
Hell yeah. Overhead press. So what is our favorite variation of this movement?
I've gone all over the place on this, and what I've decided I'm going to do is go to a gym that has those ollie boxes that you can stack up in lieu of using a rack. And I'm going back to the behind-the-neck push press. The reason why I quit doing it was because I was doing it out of the rack, so I had to either drop it on my back, which once I got up to 315 for reps, I was going to kill myself because, when you get tired on the behind-the-neck push press, you will drop it on the back of your head or your neck at least once every set, and you basically give yourself whiplash, and I was afraid I was going to fucking kill myself, so I just stopped. I got 405 for a single, I was good, but I feel like I got more in me, so I'm going to find one of those gyms and just once a week train that shit. But I love the strict military press. Feet together, legs straight, pressing off your chest. The way they have to do it, I mean, they don't have to do it with feet together, but the form that you have to use in the CrossFit games, I'm a fan of that exercise.
Right, so that's like a because you see some people, they do staggered stance as well. So let's go into that. I kind of wanted to go over why we felt the need to add overhead press, and I know my opinions on it, but why is pressing overhead important to you?
Because I like the look of having huge fucking shoulders. My shoulders are absurd looking, and I intend to keep it that way. And the way I got them that way, it was not fucking lateral raises, all that shit bodybuilders say about, oh, you get good caps on your shoulders doing, but no, fuck that shit. You get them from pressing.
I'm more about, as I get older, I'm I say older, but I'm only 28.
Yeah, I was just about to say, settle the fuck down over there.
Hey, I'm approaching 30, so everybody's told me.
God forbid.
Everybody's told me that my body's just going to completely fucking break, which, by the way, I think is lifestyle when I hit 30, so we'll see. I got 2 more years to feel good, so.
Well, for your generation, I mean, what time do you what's the age now where people are supposed to move out of their parents' houses? 40, or is it just open-ended now?
I think it's open-ended. The longer you stay, the better it is. Oh, hold on. This motherfucker's bothering me in the middle of the hatecast. We're going to do this, by the way. I hope you don't mind.
Going to do what?
Hey, Wayne, we're on the podcast. You're on speaker. What's going on?
What's up? I was saying all kinds of, incendiary shit.
Okay, well, please don't do that. Can I call you back?
Yeah.
All right, well, go away now. Bye-bye. Okay, now that he's done bothering me, stupid
incendiary
boss.
Shit.
Yeah, he's going to say some stupid incendiary shit. So why I felt the need to... So I'm all about the health side of this because like I said, I've heard of people holding drills up over their head when they're older, and then complete no strength. Rotator cuff injuries have become so fucking common when it comes to older individuals that I think that if you can take care of something, and I've always been that way, if you can take care of something early in life, you can save yourself the hassle later. I'm not about that fucking going to physio and, having something jacked up with this and that. So of course I'm going to do things to help that now. Plus I, have bodybuilding goals on the agenda, so that's a thing. You need good shoulders for that. And I do feel, like Jamie said, I do feel that overhead press is something that kind of is lost importance because every bodybuilder and their mother says now that you need to do lateral raises, and that's the only thing that gives you jacked shoulders, and you need to not do ever overhead press because it's useless and blah, 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 blah. Shut the fuck up and do overhead press. It's kind of a back to the basics thing, I mean, you would think that, like, we learned this stuff in the 70s and 80s that, pressing overhead would lead to big shoulders. And somehow that information is all of a sudden magically irrelevant because people feel that it is. And I just don't understand it. I think that doing overhead press is not only good for total body strength, but it is also one of the best things you can do for overall muscularity. I mean, think about your upper back, your traps. It can even help you root yourself better for things like doing standing variation, of course. It can help you root yourself better doing things like squatting. I mean, you can really develop a strong root to the ground by developing a strong overhead press. And there's my rant on that. But anyway, let's talk about how would we go about. First of all, I would like to bring up seated versus standing. What's your opinion on that?
I think that from a total body strength perspective, standing is the way to go. I will say that if you want to develop specific shoulder strength, mixing in seated is a great idea as well. But I really think that you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't at least include standing presses on occasion. And one of the reasons for that is sort of what you were just saying about the rooting, is it really does develop total body strength to do standing overhead presses. And the way you'll really, if you don't believe me, then go into the gym today. Do not bring a belt. Really, just throw your belt in the fucking trash or put it in storage, because unless you're competing, you don't need the fucking thing. So you're going to take your wrist straps, go in the gym, and do strict overhead presses as heavy as you can. Say, just get up to a weight that you can barely get for a single, and just do that for like an hour and a half. And then see how fucking sore your abs are, and see how long it takes for your abs to recover. Because I will tell you this, you will be sore literally from the tips of the bottom of your lungs to the base of your pelvic floor. Like, your balls will hurt because your abs hurt so bad. And it's not like the ab soreness you get from doing crunches. It's working your TVA, and it feels like your guts have been stabbed. It's crazy. So it really, like, you have no idea where your weaknesses lie until you do shit like that. And the same can go for, there was a CrossFit challenge a while back that was overhead anyhow with 85% of your body weight for as many reps as you could get it in 30 minutes. And I think I did, because I hadn't figured out like what my pacing was at first. Right. And I ended up doing like 227 reps with 85% of my body weight in 30 minutes.
Jesus Christ.
I was so fucking sore. I could have done 300. I just, like, the pacing I hadn't figured out. I kept racking the weight. I should have just kept it on my back. The arches of my feet and my toes were sore for like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, it was physically painful for me to walk.
Have you ever felt sore serratus? Like those little finger muscles on the side of your abs?
No.
Your rib cage?
Not that I know of, no. I mean, I've gotten sore obliques, but I don't know. I don't recall ever having my serratus sore.
You know, I actually feel a little bit of a pump there from doing overhead press. I know it's kind of strange, but you know, everybody's different. But yeah, total body strength is overhead press is definitely one of the better bang for your buck exercises. So yeah, I mean, bang for your buck wise, overhead press, standing overhead press is one of the best things you can do. I will say that seated has its place, and if you're dieting or something like that, where you know your central nervous system can sometimes, now I know this doesn't happen to Jamie, but it happens to me quite frequently. Just like I was dieting for a while, I lost about 40 pounds, and then I added in about 300 to 500 calories. I don't know what exactly how much, but I think it was 300 to 500 calories into my diet to just kind of take a break from the whole dieting thing over the holidays, because cutting during winter is miserable, by the way. You're cold all the fucking time. It's stupid. Why do I do this every fucking year? Yeah,
You're
I
cold
think that,
while cutting?
yeah.
You do realize we work for a supplement company that makes shit that will ramp up your T3 levels, right?
Yeah, but I also see I'm not a good example of that either, because I know T3, all that shit, right? Fine, but I also lost a significant amount of body weight. My set point, like my natural set point for insulation, is way out of whack. Like I have body temperature issues ever since I lost a significant amount of weight. I have body temperature issues. I don't know why, but I'm super sensitive to cold now. Just bad, right?
You are
I'm
just
like
a sensitive guy.
I am. Yeah, I'm like a snake. I love to sunbathe. Which is why when you say it's hot in the house, I'm like, oh, that's cozy. So when you were complaining about in the summer, I'm like, that's cozy. Why are you complaining, man?
You like being hot indoors?
I'm telling you right now, my insulation for my entire body is completely fucked.
Jesus, you would be dead on the floor right now. I think we got the house set at 64.
No, I'd be fine. Listen, I wear a sweater to bed every night.
Oh my God, you are gay as a literally.
Hell yeah. All aboard this train. So, seated overhead press, in my opinion, can come into play if you are one of those individuals who loses a little bit of strength when it comes to, I don't know, it's kind of what I like to coin the term diet fatigue, right? It's this accumulative fatigue that when you start the diet, you're fine, and then all of a sudden one day you just feel like shit. Seated overhead press can come into play then, because it can allow you to kind of use more weight in a more controlled isolation environment, right? Kind of like switching to machines. I switch to a lot of machine work when I'm dieting just because it feels better and I feel like shit anyway. I'm going to fucking do machines and lift weight and get a pump and all that stuff. So that's where I see seated overhead. Or if you're trying to get really, really, really strong on bench, I feel that saving most of your strength for the bench press and then using seated overhead press or seated military press or what have you, it has many different names, would be better for gaining bench press strength than overhead press. And I think we can go into that after we talk about the Big Four's specificity, specifically training for a specific lift. So, but yeah, I have to agree with you. Standing overhead press is the best bang for your buck variation. So, how would we go about increasing the numbers? What helped you the most in increasing your overhead press numbers?
Overhead pressing.
Oh, shit. Well, this is awkward. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
So I would be like, did I overhead press yesterday? Did I overhead press the day before? Did I overhead press the day before that? How about the 6 days before that? If the answer is no, then I should have, and I should overhead press today. So the way that I get my overhead press up is to do it every day, or close to every day.
Yeah. Do you feel any exercises specifically or any muscle groups that happen to be the limiting factor when it comes to overhead press?
Yes, your delts.
Your delts? Okay.
Yes.
So specifically, I guess overhead pressing more would be the cure for that, right?
I believe that's what I just said, yes.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Overhead press is kind of one of those, wouldn't you say it's one of the slower lifts to kind of go up?
I think that it is slow until it starts picking up, and then it is an unstoppable force of progress. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I will say that while I just kind of jokingly made the comment that I train overhead press all the time, that does work well. Yeah. But the thing that I think I found worked the best was 2 times a week dedicated specifically to shoulders, an hour and a half. One of the days I used to do with Wayne, actually, we would go into the gym, and for an hour and a half, we would do 135 cloak-off presses for sets of 12, just nonstop. I would go, he would go. I would go, he would go. I would go, he would go. And we weren't really taxing ourselves because we could have done 135 pounds for 20 or something like that. Yeah. And we were talking half the time we were doing it, but we would just do that. So that was one of my shoulder workouts. The other one was behind the neck push press. That's when I got up to 405 on it. And I probably weighed about 195-ish, something like that. So, yeah. I mean, I wasn't crazy bulked or anything like that. I was lean as shit. That worked really, really well. I find that the whatever you want to call it, the cloak-off press, the snatch grip, behind the neck strict press, whatever you want to call it, that is a phenomenal exercise. And it is both a man maker and a soul breaker if you suck at it because you look like an asshole.
See, I like when you call it a snatch grip because I like saying the word snatch and clean and jerk. So, I'm immature. But yeah, I mean, I think that personally for everybody because it's just like bench, right? There's this weird barrier that everybody has. It's at a certain weight that once you kind of blow past that, you do start to see the snowball effect. For me personally, that was 225. When I could overhead press 225, I started to pick up, right? Everything past 225 was easier than previously to 225, right? Do you find that to be the same for you specifically? Do you feel that there was a sticking weight that kind of once you got past it kind of started to snowball?
Yeah, I think once I get to 3 reps, fairly easy for multiple sets of strict overhead press, like no leg movement at all, because we all have those quote-unquote strict overhead presses where there's a little shimmy in there. It's not a push press by any stretch of the imagination. There's something happening. You know, you got a little something. There might be a little calf raise in there, something. But
you might need to use the bathroom, either one.
Yeah, it's almost imperceptible, but you know what you did. So when I get to 205 for like threes and doing multiple sets of that, I know that that's when I'm off to the fucking races. Because if I just have a workout where I do nothing but sets of triples with 205, I know my overhead press is going up. And if I do a couple sets of that and then I go up and start working singles like a fucking madman, it's going to go up from that too.
All right. And real quickly, because I think overhead press is one of the easier ones to cover, we'll go over to the harder one for most people, but I think you and I have the same opinion on it. Pretty easy to progress in, deadlift.
Oh, yeah.
So let's go ahead and jump into it. What is by far your fucking favorite variation of the deadlift?
I don't even do anything that's remotely related to the deadlift anymore. I don't like deadlifting.
I would consider rack pulls a variation.
Yeah, I mean, I do rack pull to shrug. I guess the rack pull to shrug, stiff-legged high pull, and the pendlay row are the 3 that I do. And I don't do pendlay rows like Ripato's fans seem to think it's supposed to be done. Like, I'm friends with Glenn Pendlay. I know how it's supposed to be done, and it's how I do it. You yank the bar off the floor as fucking hard as you can and try to put it through your own chest with a lot of weight. And yeah, you keep yourself generally parallel to the floor, but it's violent. It's violent. There is a little body English, and yeah, you move some weight. So I love that movement. Those three movements kept my deadlift going up. And the last time I pulled in competition, I tore my bicep, but I pulled 675 with a torn bicep, and it wasn't very difficult. I was good for 725 that day at least, and I hadn't deadlifted in the previous 3 years outside of competition.
You know, deadlift is one of those strange lifts where I think that, because my favorite variation is the conventional deadlift. I know that seems pretty weird considering everything, but I am tall, I have long arms, so I can cheat a little bit. It's what works for me. I hate trap bar deadlift because my knees bang against every trap bar because I'm taller.
Well, you can't put any fucking weight on that thing either.
Yeah, that's true, and it's a balancing act depending on which one you get. Because the hex bars, some of them are built pretty terribly. They feel weird, and it's just something that's not for me. I know tons of people love it, but it's just not for me. And it's basically a squat.
Yeah, it's...
But I will say that deadlift is one of those things where you can get very proficient at the movement. Let's just say you're starting out, right? Because I know we have a lot of people who listen to this in the 1 to 5 years of training, right? That seems to be our demographic. So if you start out deadlifting and you're a conventional deadlifter, if you get very good at conventional deadlifts, you can actually fucking drop deadlifts, pick up something like rack pulls, do some shrugs, do your pull-ups, all these things that get the muscle groups that deadlifts use stronger, and your deadlift will almost by magic go up. And you can set the bar down for a long time, 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, and still pull good numbers if you're proficient at the deadlift movement already. Because a lot of that's just training your central nervous system and the motor patterns in order to lift the bar up without basically hurting yourself.
And having a strong upper back.
Having a strong upper back. And then you're golden, right? There's nothing that... I mean, people really put this big emphasis on deadlifts being this almost mythical beast, right? But if you've noticed, people who deadlift usually lift the most amount of weight that they can lift in the big three, or the big four in this case, doing deadlifts, because it's the easiest to put weight up on. It is also the least specific out of the movements to train. You can do rows, your deadlift goes up. You can do squats, your deadlift goes up. You can do pull-ups, your deadlifts go up. You can do rack pulls, your deadlifts go up. So just concentrate on the muscle groups and not specifically the movement itself. If it's really important for you for it to be in your programming because you have a very specific need to specifically train for it, if I didn't say specific enough, I'm sorry, specifically, you just add it in one day, do 3 to 4 sets, and then like train the muscle groups surrounding it. You'll get strong at the deadlift. Your numbers will go up. And if you're
to that end, I would like to do an unpaid advertisement for the company that makes those mag bars. We bought two of them in the last month. Holy shit, I love those things. And I am of the opinion that doing a lot of rowing will lead to a lot of fucking strength. So, and I'm a big fan of rowing. I swear to God, I'm like 5 feet wide now because I do so much fucking back work. And I love those goddamn... I couldn't love a human baby as much as those bars. And if I accidentally got Mel pregnant, I would name the kid Mag. Those fucking bars are amazing. Have you used one?
I have not had the pleasure, although I am pretty close-minded in what I have tried because I have actually never trained in a powerlifting specific or bodybuilding specific or anything gym. The gym that I train at right now has equipment like Rogue plates and stuff like that, but that's because they've just started adding them slowly. We've even got Rogue sandbags now, which are these Atlas stone mimicking pretty cool little things, which I'm going to be using for pretty much ever now because they're cool and it makes you feel strong lifting them and all this jazz. But I've never had the pleasure of using a mag bar. So it's
Well,
something on my try list.
I don't know if they're bodybuilding specific or powerlifting specific. We had them at we used them incorrectly at Powerhouse, the Powerhouse where we were training, because we didn't realize they were specifically for back. So we were using them for push downs, and I love the one for push downs.
I think they're multi-use, honestly.
So
I've seen them though. I'm a fan.
The one that we accidentally bought was definitely, it's only to be used for back. It's for rows. And dude, we went in there and we were like, all right, we're just gonna get 45 minutes in and then go eat. We were there for 3 fucking hours doing nothing but cable rows because neither of us wanted to quit. And I was using the entire fucking stack because the thing is so ergonomically designed and the grip is so nice that I didn't want to stop doing it. And I was using the whole rack and just doing fucking sets of like 15 and just killing it. And like my back was so pumped and I was just like, I don't want to stop, but I guess we probably should.
So I've heard from the mag bars, for the mag handles, something I've heard about them is they almost feel natural in the way that they grip. It's that ergonomic design you were talking about. So it's much, you feel like you've had a much more effective workout because it feels like you're supposed to grip the bar here.
And the way they have the grips molded and also whatever they put on the handles, it's like it sticks to your fucking hands. So you're not like taxing your forearms overly much. Although somebody said to me that it was due to my grip strength that I was able to use the mag bar so well because like you can't involve your thumbs, so you gotta have good grip strength. I've never considered myself to be a person with good grip strength, but I don't know. I loved it. It sticks to your hands. It doesn't tear the skin off your hands. It's just they're fucking amazing.
Right. Yeah. No, it's on my to try list. But speaking of which, is there any specific equipment that you think would be useful to increase your deadlift? Like I know that we have a lot of wacky inventions out there now. One of my favorites happened to be I actually got to use one of these, a belt squat machine. Those are actually pretty
I could not figure out how to get into the belt squat machine to use it.
It's fucking weird. The one that I tried had a belt that you attached like a dip belt to it, so it was a little bit easier to get in.
Yeah, this thing was attached, but I couldn't.
Yeah, no.
Like when I put the belt on, if I unhooked the belt and I put the belt on, I couldn't actually squat low enough to hook it to the thing, and so I don't know. I just gave up because I didn't. Yeah. I felt like I already looked like enough of an asshole, and this gym was. I was getting a lot of weird looks in it, and I came to find out later that the gym owner, after the first time I went in there, called around to a bunch of the people that. I guess somehow he knew I knew, asking if I was like okay to have in his gym because he thought I was going to tear the place to pieces. And I was just like, what the fuck kind of... And then I just went up to the gym owner and I was like, you can eat shit and fucking die. Like, this is not worth my time. After they got back to me, he was like...
What the fuck did you do?
Nothing. When I go to a gym, I'm an antisocial person. I don't talk to people. I quiet scream along with my music. I train very fucking hard. I don't look anybody in the eye. Like, I don't smile at anybody. I don't wave at anybody. I don't talk to anybody. I just go in and train. And it's not because I'm trying to be a dick. It's just because I get into a certain mindset that I enjoy, and I'm there to lift, and I'm not there to make friends. So I go in and I fucking have a good time. And apparently this really upset the gym owner, and he was calling all around asking if I was some kind of fucking maniac or something, and I was just like, fuck that place. Everybody told me not to take offense, and I was like, I don't need people vetting me to find out if I'm going to fuck up their gym.
Yeah, no, see, I thought it was a little bit different. I thought you went up to the belt squat machine and you just took a 5-pound plate and you smashed the machine, kept hitting it, like, Jamie don't like! Jamie don't like!
No, it was more of like, the files are in the computer. It was more of that sort of thing, only without the smashing, just sort of like, remember the scene in Zoolander?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. It was more of that where I was like examining the thing like I don't understand how the fuck this thing works.
Anyway, that imagery will forever be in my head now.
Yeah.
So deadlifts, talk about potential breakdown. So where does the breakdown happen in deadlifts when people fail on doing the lift?
It's one of 3 things. You're like half Thor, and it just falls out of your hands because your grip strength isn't strong enough. And holy shit, That was sad because that looked like everything he did looked easy as shit. I don't know if you watched any of the videos. Every single one of his lifts looked preposterously easy. He squatted 920 so fast that it could have been 135. And then he was pulling close to 1,000 and got it halfway up and it just fell out of his hands. But, I mean, it was fast as shit. If he had straps on, he could have done another 100, 200 pounds.
Probably, yeah. No, I mean, that really does come into play.
So it's grip strength. It's having the bar too far away from your shins.
Right.
Which will cause you to fail forward. Or looking down. Again, shifts your weight to your toes.
Yeah. And, you know, some of the reason why people say keep a straight back when you're deadlifting or or look up when you're squatting, right? It's because excessive forward lean. Okay, so just to educate people a little bit, you cannot get a compressed disc by lifting backwards. You have to be bent forward to compress a disc, to herniate a disc, okay? This is why good morning squatting can get you in trouble. This is why rounding your back in the deadlift can get you in trouble. As long as your back is straight, the limiting factor will almost always be your muscularity, or you could be, you know, having issues with your grip, like Jamie said. Because, you know, there's this whole deadlifting is bad for your back shit, I wish would die. And this whole squatting is bad for your back shit, I wish would die. It's just not true if you execute the lifts correctly. So, I will say that the breakdown that I've seen, where it happens is people either, because there's this little glitch that happens with people because they think that they're going to injure themselves deadlifting. Like I said, if your back's straight, don't worry about it. There's this little glitch that happens where when their hips start to hinge, they do this jerky movement, right? Which sometimes that's, you know, when their hips shoot up before when their hips shoot up too fast, right? It's because they're afraid of injuring something, like the subconscious level. You know, like there's this when Lee Priest, right? He had never torn something before. And somebody said, "Oh, don't tear a bicep," jokingly. And then his lifts suffered because he kept thinking about tearing his bicep. You know, he talked about that in an interview somewhere. I forget what it was, but it's the same thing. Like, don't concentrate on injuring yourself when you're deadlifting. Just fucking lift, right? That's one. Huh?
That is the best way to guarantee you're going to get injured, is thinking about injuring yourself.
Right.
If that thought is even in your head, you will get injured.
Your performance suffers too.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Something's going to happen that you're overly focused on it, and so you're going to fuck yourself up.
Right. And the other common causes behind your deadlift numbers not going up is the fact that you're just not strong enough somewhere, right? The deadlift uses a lot of different muscle groups. Some people have weak hamstrings, which we've already been over that with the squat. Some people have a weak back, which if you're listening to us and you have been for a long time, you should be hammering pull-ups like no other. You should be hammering rows like no other. You shouldn't have that issue. You know, some people have weak quads. Now, you know, the leg drive involved in a deadlift is a lot sometimes. And for people with weak quads, you know, you could be doing something to correct that, which is Jamie's favorite variation, front squats. You know, front squats will get you good quads. It'll get you strong quads. Other than that, I think that deadlift is just a waiting game, honestly. I think it's the biggest waiting game. Like, if you're wanting to pull 600 plus, keep going at it. I know that sounds kind of stupid, but Jesus Christ. I mean, stop being so impatient when it comes to the deadlift and getting above. Because remember, your barrier that you think you should lift more than, right, is 600. Everybody wants to have more than a 600 or more than a 500 deadlift, right? That's a higher number than squat or bench or, you know, overhead press. So fucking wait. It'll come. Just be patient. And I think that kind of leads us into our closing statement. So,
actually what I warned people against this early on because it was my only warning against, like, quote unquote overtraining, and it was my cautionary tale about deadlift because I was trying to get my deadlift over 500 when I weighed around 150, and so I was in the same session. I was deadlifting to max, rack deadlifting to max, one arm deadlifting to max, two finger deadlifting to max, and then shrugging. And I developed this problem where my upper back was so fucking knotted up that it would so I was having trouble doing like chest because I couldn't pick up dumbbells. I was having trouble loading the bar. Right. And it really fucked up my deadlift for a long time, and it made me real cautionary about training deadlift heavily because I was afraid that my back would start cramping up. And somebody completely ignored that, started deadlifting like 3 times a week because he was trying to get his deadlift over like 650. And then he has developed this bizarre use of like a 40-pound steel roller that he's using to roll out all the knots in his back, which is agonizingly painful to the point where he throws up doing it. And but he's back to deadlifting. But it's still like the deadlift is something that if you overdo it, you will pay the price.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. But I think that kind of leads us into our closing statements here. So
all right, closing statements.
Let's talk a little bit about sleep. So if I'm correct, you might be writing an article here coming up on sleep, right?
I've written articles about sleep.
Okay. Huh? Well, you've written articles about sleep and how important it is. So you can take our advice all you want, but if you're not getting enough sleep in order to accommodate the adaptation from the tips and tricks that we're giving you, which, by the way, a lot of this stuff is common sense, you're not going to get the benefits out of it. You're going to, eat into your recovery. You're going to lack performance and all this other shit. I mean, there's a whole host, which, by the way, I'll link Jamie's articles on sleep so that you can do some reading. But the host of bad things that happen if you don't sleep is just astronomical. You need to make sure that you at least get the amount of sleep that you need in order to adapt to the changes that you're making, in order to increase the numbers, to increase your strength, to increase your the benefit you get from your training. Because if you don't sleep, it's pointless. All of this is fucking pointless. You have anything
what do you
to add to
recommend
that?
For sleep? Because I know you are chronically sleep deprived.
I'm not chronically sleep deprived, man. I have insomnia now. A little bit of backstory. I have been diagnosed with clinical insomnia. So I had the little diodes. I had the sleep study. They put diodes on my head, that oil that never washes out. That was done on me, and they found that I was, in fact, clinically diagnosed with insomnia. I've been clinically diagnosed with insomnia. I take sleeping medication. I also take hypnosis on top of that because it's synergistic with my sleeping medication, right? But I try to get anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And I do absolutely everything in my power to get that, including my sleep hygiene routine. So I think sleep hygiene, a little routine for sleep hygiene is important, I mean, I'm not talking about turning off screens because I know that can be a little bit unrealistic. But, I mean, you have blue light filters on your phone for a reason. You have TVs that are, you can turn down the blue light in order to help you get into a little more relaxed mode. You can take things like melatonin. You can take things like hypnosis to help you sleep. Sleep hygiene is often neglected, and sleep hygiene, I think, is something that people need to really consider implementing into their daily routine. Do you do anything to help you sleep at night?
Beyond taking the occasional hypnosis, no. One thing that I think is really fucking up people's sleep, I keep seeing it on the news in the morning, is people are texting in their sleep. Like, they sleep with their phone in the bed with them. You're out of your fucking mind if you're sleeping with your fucking phone in the bed with you. You don't need to hear from anybody in the middle of the night. Nobody needs to hear from you in the middle of the night. Like, call me a crotchety old man all you fucking want. Put your fucking phone away.
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal. There's nobody that needs it. You're not a doctor. You're not a lawyer. You're not anybody who needs to fucking hear from anybody in the middle of the night. There's no emergencies. Settle the fuck down. You're not that important. Put the phone away. Because it's fucking up your sleep.
People like my mom are always afraid that someone's going to die in the middle of the night, and they get this freaking phone call that never comes, by the way. And then they're going to be like, oh, that's why I have to keep my ringer on. 12 o'clock in the morning hits, and now you have Facebook screaming at you because some of your friends don't really think that sleep that important. So you have notifications that go off. You have people sharing memes to you. You have people messaging you at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I have asshole friends that do that. And it's just, yeah, I agree. Turn your fucking phones off. Put them on an end table. Put them face down. Don't have the ringer on. Jesus Christ. It's not that difficult.
Yeah, I'm not sure what people are up to with that. I mean, sleep in a cold room. Well, for you, I guess. I don't know.
No.
I guess
I do
wrap
the cold
yourself in
thing,
maxi pads or something.
Jesus Christ.
But sleep in a cold room. Sleep on clean sheets. And I'm as guilty of it as anybody else. Like, if you're an adult male and you live by yourself, you kind of get used to, when the fuck was the last time I changed my sheets?
Let's see, 3 months ago?
Yeah, something like, you're looking at the sheets and you're like, they don't look dirty, but yeah, maybe I ought to change them. Usually you only change them when, like, you got a different girl coming over and you don't want her seeing the stains that are already on the sheets. So, yeah, clean sheets really make a difference, and you'd be surprised, but they do. Darkness is key, and if you have a problem with, like, there's too many lights in your room and shit like that, get one of those fucking sleep masks. I've slept with one for years, and it gets to the point where you train yourself essentially to, like, just go unconscious. It's like you just flip a switch and you're knocked the fuck out. You put in the way as soon as that, like, silk touches your eyeballs, you're unconscious. So I'm gonna
have
always
to pick up one of those because excess light seems to be my enemy. So
yeah, that's a bitch. Also, sleeping on your back is a big deal. And I have the problem that, once you get over an 18-inch neck, you're going to snore. And so I have conditioned myself to lay on my sides to prevent snoring. Now I'm just like, you know what? You're going to fucking deal with it because I want to sleep well. So, and also I keep fucking up my shoulders sleeping on my side. So don't sleep on your stomach. It's terrible for your neck. You don't sleep well. You're basically choking yourself. And it's just, from a spinal health perspective, it's horrific. Sleep on your back.
Yeah, I have to agree there. And let's go on to this. So,
and also turn off your fucking TV. Like,
yeah.
And I mean, I will occasionally leave the TV on because if I can't get my brain to shut down, a lot of times I will leave a TV on because I'll lucid dream using whatever's happening on the TV. So I'll actually put on, like, I know this sounds insane, but that's me. I'll put on, like, a war movie, like Black Hawk Down or something like that, and I'll insert myself into the movie and dream about it. That works pretty well for me. But that's the only time I ever sleep with the TV on, or if I accidentally fall asleep. Like, whenever I put on the NFL, I fall asleep. It was like a tradition in our house. Like, we would make a bunch of food, we'd be watching TV, everybody would be napping, we'd be awake, we'd be napping, we'd be awake. So I fall asleep during NFL games. But, yeah, that's about the only time I sleep while the TV's on.
Do you have an article on lucid dreaming?
Yes, I do. It's up on chaosandpain.com. Because I use Hypnos. I use Hypnos and binaural beats. And holy shit, I have tripped balls doing that.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to get that from you, and we'll link it in the description box below. So, I'd just like to close out on this. So there is this issue of, I think, there's a couple different things when it comes to increasing these numbers that you guys need to realize, right? So body weight plays into it. If you lose weight, you're going to be a little bit less strong, especially if it's a significant amount of weight. If you gain weight, you're going to be significantly stronger. If you want to gain the most amount of strength possible, you need to be in an energy surplus. I know it's a little bit controversial, but I'm going to have to say that you need to gain weight in order to get significantly stronger. I mean, for fuck's sake, it's the basics, that people I think sometimes forget. So, what are your opinions on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And just don't focus too much on the minutia. That's if you're having problems, and also just remember that it's not set in stone. You have to do these fucking lifts. I mean, right. I've written extensively about some guys in like the 50s that just didn't like flat benching, so they inclined, and they didn't like squatting, so they fucking ran in the sand, shit like that. Like, if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. There's no fucking rule that says you have to. Do what you enjoy.
Have you ever forced yourself to do these lifts? By the way, I'm just curious. I haven't really asked you about this. Like in your powerlifting career, did you ever force yourself to bench, squat, and deadlift any more than you had to? For you thinking it had any benefits?
I've never really enjoyed benching. Okay. So that was always just kind of a struggle to get myself to do. It's always something I've done out of obligation and not something that I've actually enjoyed because, I mean, I'm okay at it, but I'm not great. And when you get into an elite class of strength and you have a lift that's just like, all right, so 405 is not bad, but it's not like nobody's running around screaming about it.
Yeah.
It's you just kind of don't have any interest in doing it because I got so many other things that I'm awesome at. Why the fuck am I going to waste my time with that? So yeah, I'll force myself to bench. I don't even bother forcing myself to squat and deadlift anymore. And I'll be quite honest because my leg strength comes up so fast. I'll go a month without training legs sometimes just because I like doing upper body so much. I don't let my legs get too small, and I also make sure I train calves no matter what, because in shorts nobody knows what your quads look like, but they can see your calves. So I'll do that. But I mean, I don't who the fuck minds calf training? It's fun to do anyway. So,
yeah. There's a famous Jamie Lewis quote right there, guys. If you want to snapshot that or make memes about it, nobody can see your quads in shorts, but they can see your calves. I like that.
Yeah, it's true, right?
I like that. So you also have to understand that training progression is not linear, right? So you have a couple different things that come into play: body weight, you have personal fatigue levels, you have volume. Because sometimes what I like to do if I'm not particularly feeling strong is just throw a fuck ton of volume at it. I mean, you'll gain strength from the increase in volume. So there's different ways of skinning a cat, You have, and by the way, no, Pete, I'm not going to stop saying that. I just triggered some people. Did you hear about that?
No.
It's a whole fucking thing. They're trying to get people to stop saying different ways to skin a cat. Anything that has to do with negative connotations towards animals. So.
Oh yeah. I did see that. I'm literally playing fetch with my cat right now as you say that. She doesn't mind.
No, she's fine. But
And yeah, my cat plays fetch because she's fucking cool like that.
Hell yeah! Well, she was the banner of Plague of Strength. So I mean, she
was with her one eye.
Yeah, but don't be afraid of variation, and remember, guys, nutrition will always play a role in this. Make sure you're in a hypercaloric state and natural progress. And I think this is not hammered enough because people put too much stock in what elite level lifters are lifting and not enough on how far the lifter themselves has come from when they started, right? I was curling 5-pound dumbbells when I first started out, okay? Now I can curl much more than that, and I've come so far. Natural progress will be different than enhanced progress. So I would like to kind of put that at the forefront, because if you think standards are unrealistic for people who are not using things, that's because, I'm sorry to burst your bubble here, I'm sorry to be insensitive, but they fucking are. And that's just the way things are right now in the strength, sports, and anything else realm of things. I'm sorry to hurt your feelings, but it is different, and it is skewed towards the enhanced. But that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother video. But I think we're done, and I think we'll sign out on this one.
Speaking of what you just mentioned, I've got an article that's going up today about Chet Yorton, who is one of the 3 bodybuilders who ever beat Arnold in competition. And he was like the first natty bro, and he was so fucking insufferable as a natty bro that people just shunned the shit out of him until he eventually just quit bodybuilding altogether. He actually formed the first natural bodybuilding magazine and the first natural bodybuilding organization, and after 3 years just quit the whole shittery, sold his supplement business, and went into the antiquing business because he just couldn't fucking stand it anymore.
Hold the fuck on. Hold the fuck up. Wait a minute. Hold the fuck on. Somebody who is touting natural bodybuilding, who is the first natty bro, went into fucking antiquing.
Yep, because everybody... Yep.
I can't handle that.
And, dude, when I say that this guy was fucking Superman, he was fucking Superman. He was 160 pounds in a wheelchair for 4 months, gets out of the wheelchair after breaking his leg. He'd smashed his one bone in his leg to dust. So they put a bar in it. He's finally out of his wheelchair, falls down a flight of stairs on his crutches, bends the bar in his leg at a 45-degree angle, and they didn't want to operate on it again because they didn't want to infect it. So they put his leg in a fucking vise and bent it back into place. He starts lifting dumbbells while he's in his wheelchair, and had never played sports before, mind you, except for like a little bit of baseball. Starts doing dumbbells in his wheelchair, and in the next 2 years proceeds to put on 80 pounds of muscle, and then cuts to 215 and wins the first bodybuilding competition he ever goes into, the Mr. Wisconsin, and 2 years later beat Arnold.
Who hurt him?
Huh?
He sounds like he has a fucking chip on his shoulder the size of Texas.
The dude was a fucking beast. But he ended up losing to Boyer Coe in competition and freaked the fuck out because Boyer had used D-ball, and so he decided to make his own federation, and that's how Natty Bros were born.
Oh my! Well, I'm looking forward to it now. Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Antiquing, really? That's where this story ends. Him fucking retiring, going antiquing.
The story actually ends with he guest posed in at Muscle Beach when he was inducted into the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame at the age of 67 and looked better than every single person on Reddit. And he had a great quote that was, the first 70 years were easy, but the next 70 are going to be a bitch.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, the dude's actually pretty funny, but fucking Natty Bros. Doomed.
Oh, yeah. I'll put that in the description once it's released. But guys, thank you for watching. If you have not liked this video, then what the fuck are you doing with your life? If you have not subscribed, what are you doing with your life? And if you do not click the notification bell, that is important because it tells you when the latest hatecast comes out or anything on this channel, if it's new content or what have you. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That may be happening pretty soon. What are you doing with your life? If you dislike this video, you can shove it where Reddit shoves it. And, yeah, like, we'll see you in the next one, and thanks for watching, and thank you for supporting this thing. You know, we've been doing this shit for 40-something weeks. It's crazy. We're coming up on a year. Yeah. Yeah.
Goddamn. Oh, and just as a teaser, go to plaguestreg.com, and assuming that he comes back to me with the answers in time, the first article on the new site that's going to be exclusive to that site is with a very prominent Luciferian occult author named Michael Ford about how to harness the powers of the occult for strength sports.
That's not clickbait, by the way. That's the actual article name.
No, that's dead serious.
Well, we'll always look forward to it, and thank you for watching, and thank you for joining me, and God damn it, you guys have been fucking wonderful. We're almost up to 2,000 subscribers. Keep killing it, guys. All right.
Bryce wants to touch you in your no-no place.
I do, and then go antiquing afterwards.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of their women. That is That is good.
Too many thoughts on my mind, I can't sleep at night, so I just keep writing. I don't need no help, I don't need opinions, so don't waste my time then. I just been living online, my city don't show me no love and that's fine. Fuck local radio stations, I got more plays than all of these rappers combined. I'm going again, I've been going in, I'm fed up with so many things. I gotta just let it all out, I'm talking about the shit they've been talking about. Telling me I should do this, telling me I should do that. Telling me things about rap. Talking the truth and that stab in my back, they will knock me off track, no. Too many things have been building, been hard to deal with, I just been drinking. Remember my moves in the past, I'm wondering what was I thinking. Lately I'm living in fear, wondering what if the end is so near. All of this shit going on, the shootings are strong. One shot to the head and I'm gone. I'm losing control but I can't let it go, cause I'm trying to get more. And I've been in the moment, I've been in the zone, and I'm moving alone. I don't pick up the phone when my family call, I've been doing it wrong and I don't know what's happening. Trying to get what I just been imagining, getting close and I just been examining all of the fake shit the game has been packaging.
Power pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
I come from a town where most of the people are so close-minded. They go into school and they work in a job but they don't even like it. I won't be put in a box, nobody telling me what I should rock. Nobody telling me what I should drop, cause I do what I want and just know I don't stop. Recording till 4 in the morning, they snoring. I'm pouring my soul into every story. I'm writing, producing, I mix it, I master. I'm building my craft and I'm not looking back. I've been going doing things I wanna do when I want to. Everybody wanna get a win but they not do. Everybody wanna copy you but they not you. Everybody wanna be cool but they not new. Whoa, look how I go, gonna be a dentist, I still got the flow. Never gonna lose cause I'm still doing both. Never gonna lose cause I've been on the road. Come to your state and I'm killing the show. Know that I'm young and I still gotta grow. Know that I'm working the most, know I'm never gonna choke. And I'm looking back down on the people below.
I've been keeping real, I've been doing